So really defining what safety means, and not just defining it intellectually in your body. Take a second and go, when did I last feel safe? Ask your partner this. How did I make you feel safe this week? Or when's the last time with me you felt really safe?
Welcome to the Core Insights podcast, the podcast that dives deep into the heart of human potential. Here at Core Insights, we're peeling back the layers of human experience to reveal core truths that drive personal growth, authentic living, and peak performance. Each episode will be joined by members of our exceptional Core Elements team, seasoned therapists and coaches who are passionate about helping you unlock your full potential. We're not just sharing theories from textbooks, we're sharing real-world wisdom gained from years of practice, cutting-edge training, and most importantly, the profound experience of working with clients just like you. Let's begin this journey together. Welcome to Core Insights, where transformation starts at the core. Welcome to the Core Insights podcast, Noel. Glad for you to be here with us today. Us being me and the dog.
Yeah.
Who you may hear in the background of this podcast. If you hear snorting, there's a cute little Frenchie in the room with us. So
Not me.
Yeah, no, it's not Noel snorting. It's the dog. All right. So today's topic, we're talking about my favorite topic, of course, couples or relationships. Mm-hmm. And you have some questions that you want to propose to me, and we'll just kind of have a conversation and see where this. And we're leading into, I think I was thinking about this podcast. We're heading into the holidays here, and it's romantic times, and also lots of stress times, but lots of engagements happen. So I'm thinking if we can give our audience some take homes today for, at least from my point of view, why couples struggle. Mm-hmm. And if you're just going to get engaged in this, holiday season, congratulations. And here's some questions to think about, maybe, going into potential marriage or long-term relationship. So that's where my head was when thinking about this podcast.
Yeah, no, I think that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. I do have some questions for you.
Okay. Awesome. Ask away.
All right. So I want to know, you say marriages, they rarely fail because of like money or sex. Mm-hmm. What do you think they actually fail from?
Yeah. People, that's a good question. I get asked that all the time. And people come in my office, like it's kind of Stan's joke too, that we say they come for 5 things. Money, sex, mess, kids, or fighting about in-laws or like day-to-day kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So, but those are usually symptomatic. Some people come in and they come in for a topic like that. We're fighting about money, we're fighting about having sex, we're fighting about whatever, lack of communication. I hear that one lots too. Mm-hmm. My job is to kind of go beneath the surface and go, what caused that? Because you probably did communicate well. You probably did have an intimate life. You probably did have, some things that were happening earlier on. So what caused that to break apart? And so they're in my office, usually, it's unfortunate. Gottman has got some good research on this. Gottman says that couples wait about 6 years after seeing, problems or concerns. They wait about 6 years on average to come into therapy. So by the time they've come and seen me, 6 years later, there's 6 years of resentment. Mm-hmm. And sometimes even contempt, and worst case, like disgust when I look at my partner. So, come in anyways. I'm not saying don't come in if you're 6 years in, but man, if you can come in a little bit earlier, and I can give you some tips onto, it's not usually the affair. I know that sounds, people come in, I have lots of affairs. I work with lots of affair couples and I love them. But the affair is often symptomatic of what's happening before that. Mm-hmm. So it's I say to my couples, I don't know if it's a bad example, but death by 10,000 slivers. So there's 10,000 things. Like there's so many little things that happen before usually the affair, or the financial thing, or the lack of sex, or the lack of communication. There's so many things that build up to create that moment in their relationship. By the time I get to my office, I'm looking at, let's go back to the beginning. And I could talk a lot about that, which I'm sure I'll get into today, about, how to start off well. And couples that are listening that are into a long-term relationship, where you're at today is okay. Mm-hmm. Rather than look and say, it's easy to say, I have the halo, you have the, the horns, which we do in conflict often. Mm-hmm. But I'd rather pause and go, let's go back to the beginning and how things started, and where things started to, like, those little slivers started to put themselves insert into the relationship. And there's lots of things we'll talk about, I'm sure, today. Mm-hmm. And then you're coming here now with this, this big issue, let's say, but it's usually symptomatic of 10,000 slivers.
Yeah. So most marriages don't explode. They kind of erode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like slowly and then all at once.
Yeah.
So there's like a bunch of little slivers happening, little, disruptions happening in the marriage, mm-hmm. and that we're not paying attention, or maybe we notice them, we don't say anything. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden this one thing, this affair or this financial thing or this whatever happens, or this breach of whatever, some other third happens, and then we're divorcing, or we're not talking, or we're
in really bad shape, but it's all those little things we didn't pay attention to in the first place.
Okay. So explaining with that 10,000 slivers idea, how do couples kind of overcome that aspect?
That's a good question. Overcome. My preference would be they don't have to overcome it. We go back to the beginning, and my preference would be they come in early.
Mm-hmm.
I will boast all day about premarital counseling. I think it's like such a good thing to do. I mean, if you want to give a gift to someone who's getting married, give them premarital counseling. Going back, I've been married a long time. We did premarital with our pastor. And he meant well, but never been married and didn't ask us any of these hard questions. It was very surface questions. And I actually have the book in my office. I kept it. It's kind of funny that I kept it all these years. And we, drew out like how many kids we want or some really basic stuff. But there was no question about, like, what does sex mean to you?
Yeah.
What about money? Like, where did you learn about money? And, when you think about money, what kind of emotion do you have tied to money? And what do you want to do long term about money? And how do you want to, do you want to share accounts? Or how do you want to pay for stuff? And like, there's lots of, premarital questions we can ask about those hard topics. What do you think about communication and how often? Those are things we take for granted. Of course we're going to communicate. Really? But if we're going to start this thing called a relationship, like quote unquote a business, shouldn't we have a scheduled, organized time where we meet on a regular basis, like daily would be great. At very least weekly, to go, hey, how are we doing with this thing called our relationship? So I don't know that they overcome. I think when they come to my office, they, often I get, like I said, couples, I get the extremes. I get either the premarital couples, which I salute all day long. I get the ones that have, been married 25 years and come in with so much resentment and so much disdain for each other. And so I'm trying to peel back the understanding of like, you got here for a reason. And I'm really trying to insert compassion much as I can to look at their partner without those horns, that you're seeing a part of them. You're seeing they're bringing something to the table from their own defensive experience from, again, 10,000 of their own slivers. So if we can really look at from a compassionate lens of what caused us to get here in the first place and what role do I play too, maybe we can, maybe not overcome, maybe we can then have some compassion and some forgiveness for ourselves and each other, and then really start again.
Yeah.
I really think the map that we can give couples, in marriage counseling is such a useful tool. And even if you feel like you're way off course and your boat is like sunk, to use the analogy of the ship, right? We can create a map right now. But there's no, I can't say, I guess, if you're done, you're done. But people come in my office. I had a couple literally this summer who I saw just yesterday actually. And they came in and she was like, I want a divorce. And this was in the summertime, so like 6 months ago. And they came yesterday and I was like, how are things? And they're like, we're not divorcing. Like, we're in a good space. Because they had a map. Yeah. And they finally followed through. Not perfectly. Yeah. They're not perfect. Neither am I. I'm not perfect at it. But they had a map to follow.
Yeah. So providing some structure.
Structure is really important.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea of love being unconditional sounds so romantic and so great. And maybe we could argue that it is. But relationships are definitely not unconditional. They come with conditions. And that goes back to like our whole system of like attachment and biology and nervous system and our parts language we talk about. Yeah. But there are conditions. And if we can create a map to make those conditions the best possible for our thing called a relationship, why wouldn't we?
Right. Really learning how to understand your partner.
Yeah.
What makes them tick.
Yeah.
And how they work.
Yeah. Well, that's a big topic. If you want to dive in there, that's a big topic.
Sure.
So when people come in, again, we're premarital or anytime in their relationship, even with individual counseling, we do this, but knowing who your partner is, they're a different animal than you. And so not just knowing their favorite foods, those are great. So beginning of the relationship, we ask all these fun questions like, what do you like to do? And what do you like to eat? And what's your favorite movies and favorite music? And what are your embarrassing moments? And what scares you? And all these questions. Like we get a mental map of our partner's world. And then we start to ask those questions later on. We think we know our partners and we automate them, as Stan would say, very quickly, actually. Within the first, 12 to 18 months, we start to automate our partners. And we think we know them. And we start to ask those questions. So even just those questions of like, hey, what's your music these days? Or what's your favorite foods these days? Like, I don't know about you, but my taste buds changed over the years. Right? Yeah, and what I like and what I like to listen to has changed over the years. And life affects those things. And so that's kind of the dating kind of stuff. And then we go back to the, where I teach you guys, I talk about the thoughts is, all the way to the beginning of like, how were you loved? So attachment systems, like what does love mean to you? How were you loved? How was vulnerability handled in your family? How did you see vulnerability? Was it safe to be vulnerable in your family? Did you see your parents vulnerable? How about discipline? What was that like for you? How did your parents fight? How did you fight with them? What was fighting? What was conflict look like? Was it repaired? How was money handled? What is the emotion around money? How about affection? How about intimacy? How about religion? How about community? I mean, there's so many questions I can ask in the foundational kind of your origin story questions. And then we have those all show up then as our parts of ourselves. We talk about those, as our therapist taught, but
Yes.
we have then parts of us that hold space for XYZ. So this anxious part, or this high achiever part, or this perfectionistic part, or whatever. This relationship part, and what is the story about relationship? And then below that is our whole nervous system, which is biology. And so there's a lot of things happening biologically, in our bodies that are really not of our conscious awareness often. And so I can teach people all those things. I could be like, pause, you see your partner what they just did? Get out of your chair for a second, do this thing. I come in, my people come I'm like, come in my office and just be like, if you're open to this and you're open to some crazy interventions that you've seen,
Yes.
I'm like, let's just try it. Let's just play. And I want to see what happens to someone's body. Get out of your chair, get on your knees, sit on the floor, turn your back to each other, dance for a second. I want to move in, lean in, put your hand there, take your hand off. I want to see what happens in real time so I can show them when you do this, their nervous system does this. Watch how it responds. And so I'm teaching them the story of each other. And often the person that's teaching them about, so for myself, you're learning the story about yourself. Because to be a skillful partner means to be skillful that I know the story of me, I'm learning the story of me through time and space, and you're my witness to that. And hopefully you're the person that's encouraging me to learn myself through time and space deeper and deeper and to evolve. Otherwise, what are we doing here?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely great answer. So really learning about your partner's attachment styles and the way that they love, the way they communicate.
Yeah.
I see that so often is that inability to communicate.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, we can have a conversation, but is it an effective communication?
Yeah. And why are they not communicating? Because they're good talkers, right? So that they can't pay attention because they're dysregulated, because it's nervous system happening, or their parts are showing up and getting in the way because they're defensive, right? Or they didn't learn how to be vulnerable in their family of origin, so vulnerability is like an allergic reaction.
For sure.
Or they don't have a language for emotions, right? So communication is a skill. And so people say I don't communicate. I'm like, I'll say, well, sure, talk about the weather, and I do that just fine.
Yeah.
It's not communication. It's what part of the communication are you getting tripped up on? What part of the communication is a struggle for you? And then can I dig at your attachment systems and your biology and your nervous system and your parts and show you your partner through a lens of compassion of like, oh, they get stuck here because of this thing. Talking about this thing for them is really hard for this reason. And if I know my partner, I can then speak to them in a way that they can receive. And my partner then can listen in a way that they have capacity to listen. Right? We talk to our kids. Think about our kids. I talk to my kids very differently. Depends on their ages, right? So someone walks in your room, someone walks in your house that's distressed, or if you're a paramedic and you walk into a scene of an accident and someone's distressed, you're being a very different communicator. You're not like, tell me what day it is and where you are in math equations. You're like, hey, it's okay. I see you. Come sit with me for a sec. Right? I'm going to regulate your system. Because what do we know? We know that state precedes story. So state of your body precedes any content.
For sure.
Which is why I've said in my office 10,000 times, and I'll say it forever. I don't care about the content. Unfortunately, it's just true. I mean, part of me, my logic does. I want to see what happened in the car accident too. I want to know the details, but that doesn't actually help solve what happened in the first place.
Yeah. I
need to see the state. Show me the state you're in, and let me actually create the state for you in real time so you can see each other in that state, and then I'll help you tell the story differently. When your partner comes in, they look big and scary and defensive, and you're like, they're an asshole. I'm like, they're scared. Or they're in pain. Or they're vulnerable, or they're right. What's behind the thing that you're seeing?
I had that conversation today where a client was stating that their parents were angry, and so what's behind that anger?
Yeah,
so much pain.
Yeah,
so much resentment, and then in their anger, it was so much grief.
Yeah,
right. So I see that a lot where it's not how it usually presents. It's that underlying.
It's underlying.
Yeah.
And in that experience, like in that example you just gave, who wouldn't want to be able to have that conversation? Tell me about your pain, and I'll tell you about my grief. That even just saying that, I feel compassionate about. I don't know the story, but you can feel we have compassion in us. We have the ability to go, oh, you're bringing pain to the table. I can soften to your pain, and you can soften to my grief. Well, I come with my anger or my defensiveness, and that's all I see. So being a skillful partner, being a skillful communicator, is looking behind that thing. And that's hard to do. I mean, I'm, last night my husband and I had a really deep conversation about something that I've been avoiding for a few days. I'm an avoider, right? I was well aware, and I'm happy to keep busy. And last night the kids went to dinner, buddy, and he was like, let's talk. And I'm like, oh, I knew this was coming, right?
Yeah.
And I have so much compassion that he is so brave to bring that stuff to my attention. I'm like, oh, okay, let's do it, right? So because the thing that, you know, we were avoiding, that I was avoiding, was a thing behind the thing. And so once I could talk about, he was like, what happened in that conversation? I was like, well, it was this actually. Like, so he knew my conversation, my presentation wasn't clear. And so he was like, what was going on behind that? So I was like, well, it's actually this. And he was like, oh. I'm like, I know, I was trying to find a way to tell you that, but we had kids around and it was busy. And yeah, it's a thing behind the thing behind the thing.
Yeah.
Always.
Always.
Yeah.
Okay. So what deeper questions could a person ask their partner to kind of learn more about them before getting into like engagement? Maybe about money, or you said sex and intimacy.
Yeah, I mean, this is where probably I'm not the person to ask sometimes because I don't do small talk very well. If there's an elephant in the room, I'm going to say, hey, let's talk about this thing. So I don't know if I'd ask these questions first date or second date per se, but when you're looking at moving into a long-term committed relationship, yeah, I think there's questions to be asked that are deep because you're going to be the proxy for all my stuff. So everything that I know about me in relationship, and how I was loved and how I experienced all those things, you're that proxy for me to experience those with in real time. And so in asking you, I'm inviting you to ask me the same questions, like how was I loved and how is vulnerability for me? So I'm opening the door to asking those questions about intimacy and connection and communication and sex and money and vulnerability. Like there's so many areas of how were you loved? I mean, even just that question, how were you loved? Opens the door to could be a really fun conversation. What do you mean love? What does love mean to you?
Yeah.
Like even that word love, let's define that together. What do you value? Like where's the hill you want to die on? Like what's the important things in your life that are really important to you? And what are the ones that are kind of bendy? Right? I used to think like, I value honesty because I do. And then I had kids and I'm like, holy crap, we lie to our kids. Like we tell them there's things, sorry if there's kids listening, earmuffs right now, but parents, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I actually struggled with that a bit. And then when I had to tell my kids about that was hard for me. And I had a conversation with my kids. My daughter, you can ask her, she'll tell you the story where I was like, you know what? I did this for this reason. And it also goes against, so it's a bendy value, obviously.
Right.
Which is I say, no, I stand for this thing. It's really important to me. It's the hill I die on. But in my real life, it's something I had to bend on for different reasons. So having those dialogues to be able to go, we're going to create these values with each other. And where do we differ? And that's okay to differ. And in our differences, can we still be safe? Like, can you disagree with me on something?
Yeah.
Can you be conservative and I be liberal or whatever it is? Or can you be black, I be white, whatever, right? Can you be this religion on this religion? And is it a place where we're going to butt heads and we can't move on? Or is it a place where we can go, I see you over there and I respect that you have that belief that's different than mine. And I actually value that you're different than me. And I can appreciate that. And because you're different, you're novel to me still. You're new to me and you're interesting to me in some ways. And we're safe to have those differences. Or is it something that this for me is a deal breaker? And what are those things?
Yeah.
And again, those things change. Like I think having these topics brought up early on isn't one and done. I think you should discuss these topics like on a regular, at least for the big ones, yearly. Like every year have a meeting of each other and be like, let's review our year of what we stood for, what was important to us. If we had to put a mission statement for our year, what would it have been? For our next year, what's it going to be? How do we want to do this year? What's important to us this year? Because again, those things change and evolve and grow.
Yeah, absolutely. You said something about values there, which is such, I think, a massive part of like, what are your values? What are my values? And when you ask somebody like, hey, well, what do you value? And a lot of times when they come in, they're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let's get clear on those.
Yeah.
You first.
Yeah.
Right? What you say you value honesty, keep it like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And what does that look like for your partner?
Yeah.
Because you might both value that.
Yeah.
But it looks completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So putting some action to a value. I say this word, but what does it mean to you? Like really define it.
Yes.
Specifically. And then what does it look like in action for you? Like what does honesty look like in action? What does respect look like? Because respect to people is different, right? So some couples come to my office and they're very passionate and they have no problem raising their voices and saying words that maybe other couples wouldn't say, and they're adorable and they're secure functioning. And some couples that would be a threat, right? I mean, I'm of the opinion for me that name calling is, not what we do in our relationship. But for some people that, again, as long as you can argue for me that it's secure functioning,
and I can see in real time that your nervous system and your biology is having not an adverse reaction to what's happening in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've seen you in action so much, watching you for so many hours. And one thing I've really taken away from that is how you talk about agreements.
Mm-hmm.
And those have really stuck. Can you
expand
on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that is like a foundation of a relationship. I think if I was to give any advice to couples now, like long-term or going into relationships new, is create agreements. They're like rules of engagement. And they're the things that are going to hold us. They're like kind of the guards of our relationship, because we're all pains in the asses. We're all annoying. We're all emotional. We're all kind of ego driven sometimes. Like we're tired. So these guardrails, these agreements we have hold us in line. They hold us to accountability. Mm-hmm. So we stand for these things based on our values, and then we create agreements on those things. So for example, let's just say we say no name calling. Let's just say it's one of our agreements. That's one of your, and then you come in the house and you're like, God, what the heck? Or I don't know. Even if I call myself an idiot, or, or like, that was stupid, or that, you could pause and be like, that's not our agreement. Right? Or, agreements can be as crazy as like, we don't drink Tim Hortons in our house, or I don't care what the agreements are. I don't care what they are, right? Yeah. But if we both agree to these things, we're saying, we agree to this thing. And then if we agree to this, then what? And why? Because it makes us, if we're going to be monogamous, mm-hmm. Well, why? Whoever asked that question? Right? We go, oh, it's just assumed. Really? Okay, well, let's talk about why. And if we're going to do that, then what? So then what does that mean? Monogamous how? How do we manage thirds in a relationship? What about coworkers and thirds of everything else in the world? How do we manage those things? Mm-hmm. And often those things, again, they change and grow. People, I could talk about that all day long, but a recent couple that used pornography lots in their early years, and now they've got kids and things are changing, and she wants to change the agreements and he's not sure why. And so going back to those agreements on a regular basis, like, what do we agree to now? Every single year, let's maybe change our agreements and go, is this working for us? If you're new at this, I would say do it every week for a while. We have these maybe a few agreements. If you listen to one of my podcasts, there's a podcast we did on secure functioning, and there's 18 principles that Stan outlines of secure functioning. It's a good outline. It's not the be all end all, but it's a good outline. And then again, the topics I discussed earlier, sex, communication, intimacy, finances, parenting, all the things, household chores. Those can be implied, but what are our agreements around those things? What does it take to run our house? And who does what? Who carries the mental load of what? Yes. So if I'm doing, picking up the kids, or I'm doing the dinner, am I also then buying the groceries mm-hmm. for the dinners? Like, it's who else is doing the mental load of preparing for those things and booking appointments, and like having agreements of who's doing those things, and then those things change. Mm-hmm. Like every week, have a business meeting. Hey, who's doing what this week? How's our agreements this week? For sure. So agreements are, I think, the foundation. I really think they guardrail and hold our relationship, hold each other, our individual selves, each other accountable to, we want to do this thing really well. We want to have this thing called relationship. And hopefully we don't go into going, well, hope it works out. Good luck with that, which we do, actually. Yeah. Right? We buy, like, my kids are in, dorms, and we had to sign all these papers for their, to be in these dorms that they're in. Here's what the costs are. Here's what the expectations are. Here's when you got to go and clean it. It's very clear agreements. And yet we get into a marriage and we have vows that sound fluffy and lovely. Till death do us part. Mm-hmm. So, okay. And then what in the meantime? And then this whole topic, I have another couple of Americans right now, premarital, who I just love. And they made a pre-marital contract, they call it, they had some great term for it, which basically is a kind of prenup. Mm-hmm. And there's all kinds of feelings about prenups. And I know Stan and I disagree with this a little bit, and even Dana and I to some degree. And I can see both sides. I can see, well, the argument of like having a prenup is kind of like, I'm going to create a contract with you for when we divorce. That doesn't sound very nice. And it's like preparing yourself that there's an exit ramp on the highway that you're taking together, right? Mm-hmm. So I get that argument. And then when I think about the death do us part thing, well, there is a part. Eventually this relationship ends. Hopefully by death. Right. But it's going to end. And so when it ends, then what? And do I want to put that in the hands of lawyers, I guess? Or the laws of the Alberta government, or whatever province you live in or country you live in puts down for me? Mm-hmm. Or do I want to have an agreement, like a will for our relationship that protects both of us? So we can, again, what makes us feel safe? Like, how can we put together this agreement, these agreements we're making for each other, and that we change on a regular basis because we have kids now, or we have animals, or we have in-laws we're taking care of, or who knows what, that creates safety for both of us. And another question I would ask, what does safe feel like in your home?
Yes.
What does safe feel like in your body?
Safety and security.
Yeah.
And I've heard you talk about that so much.
Yeah.
It's ingrained.
Yeah.
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 I always ask, does that provide safety and security?
Yeah. And what does that mean to you?
Exactly.
Because someone's safety and security comes from maybe a chaotic environment. They're very much attuned to chaos, maybe. And they're very much normalized chaos. And so they feel quote unquote safe in there. Probably not in their bodies, but they think they do. Versus someone that's maybe came from chaos that's hypervigilant to chaos and feels really, really afraid in chaos. So really defining what safety means, and not just defining it intellectually in your body. Take a second and go, when did I last feel safe? Ask your partner this. How did I make you feel safe this week? Or when's the last time with me you felt really safe? And have your partner ask that to you too. When's the last time you felt I helped you feel really safe? Or you felt really safe in this relationship? What am I doing that's making this work? What am I doing to create safety for this relationship? Because we're both contributing to this single relationship. What am I doing that's getting it right for you? And where am I getting it wrong? What am I doing that's creating a little bit of unsafety for you? Like my conversation with Jay last night. Our conversation made him feel a little unsafe, not massively, but he held it for a bit and then brought it back to my attention and was like, hey, this thing. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And I was aware of it. Yeah. And so, yeah, like, again, I have so much appreciation today. I'm like so grateful and appreciative, like, thanks for bringing that to my attention. And I knew it was hanging out there. My avoidance. I'm too busy. The therapist, right? The woodmaker, the shoemaker has no shoes or whatever the thing is, right?
Tending to ourselves.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So for long-term couples, what do you, something that they can do right now to kind of help strengthen that connection?
I think just what we were just talking about. I think, asking your partner, when's the last time I made you feel safe? Yeah. Or even if you don't use the word safe, how have I made you feel loved this week? Tell me something I did that really made you feel loved this week. And then it makes you kind of think about maybe the mundane, right? Like this week, literally this week. So it's cold here if you're listening from wherever else, but it's cold here. And so I took the mail and I get the extra key to open the bigger box for mail.
Yes.
So I had a Christmas package coming anyway. And so I went to open it and of course it's frozen shut. And I was like, I got no time. So I put it on the kitchen counter and it was sitting there, this like mail key, this big mail key. And my husband was like, what's that? I said, oh, the mailbox is frozen. This was like 2 days ago or whatever, maybe Monday, I don't even know. And I didn't think of anything of it. I was like, I'll figure it out. I have to figure out how to get to open it. I got no time. Well, the next day I come back and the key was gone. I didn't think of it. And there was a package on the counter. And I was like, oh, did we get mail today? He's like, oh, no, I went and got the package out for you. I was like, how'd you do it? He's like, oh, I took a screwdriver and just opened it. I'm like, thank you. So if he was asking me, I'd be like, that made me feel loved this week. I didn't even ask you to do it. I wasn't thinking about that. I just was putting the key on the counter. But you went out of your way behind my back to like open this thing and leave the package there. That made me feel loved. Like, thank you for noticing.
Yes.
Like those mundane things. Attuned.
Yes.
Huge. And then I think when we say those things out loud on a regular basis, like saying, I think for long-term couples, we take it for granted, right? We don't say those things like, oh, that was really great. Thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. No, but really, that's the language of my love. That is the language of the currency that makes me feel safe in this relationship. And how am I doing that for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had a client a couple weeks ago who we were having a similar conversation, and I was asking her, like, what really makes you feel important in your marriage? Like, what do you need in that marriage to make you feel like safe and supported and loved? And it was what maybe some people think as a mundane topic, but it was like, we have fluffy pillows on the bed, and he goes to bed before me, and so when I go into bed, they're always on the bed. And then I have to move them and crawl in, and he's all tucked in over there. And so I just said, hey, when you go into bed, like, do you think you could just move those pillows off the bed? And he agreed. And so now he pulls down the bed for her. So then she comes into the bedroom and she's like, it's all ready for her.
Nice.
That to her, she's like, that feels good.
Yes.
That shows me that you remembered, you heard,
you
validated, you are now providing me with that sense of like, feel good safety.
Yeah, I matter to you.
Yes.
And that, that she asked him to do that because our partners aren't wizards or mind readers. And so, hey, do you mind doing this room for me? And then when they do it, acknowledge that. Yes. Acknowledge the greatness in that. But those are sweet moments of connection. And the death by thousand slivers is not asking and not feeling it. And so I didn't ask you with the pills. I was resenting you with the pills. We didn't even know the pills were pissing me off in the first place. And now I just carry this little sliver of resentment. Or I asked you and you didn't follow through. And I didn't ask you again. And I carry, like, there's so many little slivers of resentment that could build in there. But in this case, she asked and he followed through.
Yes.
Those are the foundations of long-term success.
Yes.
It's not these big, beautiful, going on vacations is great and going for beautiful dinners is great. And it's those things. It's the everyday little things of like, I have a person that pays attention to me and that I matter to. Like, what's better than that?
It's not so mundane.
No, it's not so mundane.
No.
And I think we need to say that out loud. I think we could go, oh, no big deal. But it is a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
It is a big deal.
It is.
Did I notice you and I take care of those things for you?
Yeah. Especially as we enter the holiday season.
Yes.
Where it's more stressful. And then we have in-laws and family and opinions.
Yeah. Yes. So make agreements about those things. Before you walk into the holiday season, make agreements. Okay, so what for you anticipating that might be hard for you this year? Who might be hard for you to be around this year? What topics that might trigger you this year?
Mm-hmm.
What are those things for you? And how can I support you? And then create agreements around those things. Hey, if you give me this look, or we have a code word, or this shows up, or whatever, we can change the topic, or we can play a game elsewhere, we can distract with this other thing, or we can leave. Like, create agreements for each other that I have your back. Because again, we're doing life together. We are a team. The two of us are the king and queen of our own little kingdom. And so let's make this life for us. Like, let's make it solid and secure. And I have your back. We are a team. Again, what feels better than that? That's why we do marriage. Hopefully it's why we're in a relationship. Like, why do we get married? I ask couples that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the person that people get engaged. I'm like, congrats. And why do I do that again? Right? Why? Sorry. But again, I'm going to call a spade a spade. Yeah. And if they're like, oh, because we love each other and it's just the right thing to do, I'm like, that ain't going to last. Mm-hmm. Love isn't going to carry you through. It just isn't. I know that doesn't sound romantic, and I'm sorry, Disney. That's just true. It's your agreements, and it's paying attention to these things we're talking about, these mundane things, and then doing these things on a regular basis, and noticing these things when they change.
Yes, because you will change. You
will change.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think that attunement piece is huge.
Yeah, and it creates novelty. Like we're creatures that we like. We actually do better in novel situations because our brain lights up. Mm-hmm. And so if we just automate our partner, we're like, oh, they just like the same food and the same thing. They just they're just Groundhog Day to us. That's going to be boring to us. If I'm like, oh, you like that new thing now, or that new music, or you're into this thing, or new pillows in the bed, or whatever. I noticed the pillows, you put new pillows in them. I'm like, those are, and now I'm going to say to you, I put the pillows on the floor. I noticed they were Christmas this time. Or I noticed you got a new pillow. It's fluffy. Like I'm going to know, you got new sheets.
Yeah.
I'm going to notice those things.
Yeah.
That keeps you novel to me. Keeps me paying attention to you. Keeps me curious about you. Beautiful. And curiosity and novelty, those are all great things for your sex life, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other hot tips about that part?
About your sex life? Yeah. How deep do you want to go? Lots. I think, oh man, that's a big topic, but people come in my office and they say that they're having a rough patch in their sex life. Again, I have to go back to like, what are the 10,000 slivers? But sex often is a way of connecting or communicating that is it shows up there because other places we're not connecting. So we're not being vulnerable over here. It shows up in our bedroom. We're not communicating over here. It shows up in the bedroom. And so I go back to, each other's mundane, receiving of each other's safety and security. It's really hard, to be vulnerable. We can have physical sex and that can be really fun, but it's really hard to be vulnerable in the bedroom when you're not vulnerable elsewhere. It's really hard to have a really deep, spiritual, emotional, beautiful, orgasmic experience with someone when you're not connected.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just like masturbation then. You're doing it by yourself.
Right. With
another person in the room. And if that's the kind of sex you want to have, that's fine. But if you're looking for a deeper connection, a more playful, a more intimate, it starts before the bedroom. Mm-hmm. It starts with this that we're talking about. I mean, think about that if you're listening to that. Think about these mundane connections that we talk about. The bed being pulled down for you, the pillows being left on the floor, the coffee in the morning, the little text. I noticed you today. I loved your gray sweater. So I know that you're looking at that sweater for a long time. I'm really glad that you wore whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm noticing, paying attention to you. Hey, that song I heard on the radio, I thought about you today. I'm putting all those little things and planting those little seeds of connection. Of course I want to be intimate with you. Of course I'm so grateful to see you. I'm so happy. Of course I want to share my body with you and connect with you in that way.
Yes. That's creating the intimacy outside of the bedroom.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I ask questions with my couples and they talk about sex, I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, well, I'm like, you mean intercourse? And I'm like, that's not just sex. That's one small form of sex. Mm-hmm. And so we can expand sex into whatever they want to talk about, the physical elements, which is, again, way beyond intercourse, obviously. And then the different things that lead into that. And then intimacy being part of sex or different than sex. And again, I don't tell couples how to define it. I just say, what is your definition? And let's talk about intimacy and sex, being different constructs and how are they different for you guys? And how do you want to build these things? Mm-hmm. How do you want to build intimacy? And how do you want to build sex? And where can we start? And often I take intercourse off the table, or I take whatever their form of like their go-to sex off the table so they can build it in different ways. And then they kind of look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, take it off the table. Mm-hmm. I want you to build sex in differently. I want you to build it in with a different way of touching, with like pleasure and desire and noticing your partner's nonverbal nervous systems and each other and doing things that create, you know, and to even take an orgasm off the table. Is that always the goal is orgasm? Oh, right. Why else are we having sex? Connection, yes. Play, vulnerability, intimacy. Oh, let's take the things off the table that are the go-tos to get us to be a little more creative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So important.
Yeah.
And I get that question a lot.
Yeah.
In my office is I see a lot of mothers,
women,
overwhelmed by the end of the night. That's not what they want.
Yeah, they're touched out, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And they're like, I don't want to have sex. I don't blame you.
Yeah. But they're thinking of, when you say sex, how?
They're
I don't want to be touched.
Intimate.
I don't want to have intercourse.
Yes.
Yeah. But do you want a massage? Can I rub your feet? Can I bring you a tea? Can I tickle your head? Can I tickle your back? Could I like flip the pillows for you? Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Like porn to a mom might be like, I did the dishes for you. And I ran you a bath.
Love it.
Right? Yeah. Right? And I don't want to have any kind of physical, but I would love to just like love on you and cuddle with you. Yeah. That's sexy.
You're filling her cup so that she can actually pour it a little bit for you maybe later. Yeah. Right? Yeah. But when she's tapped out, she's tapped out. Yeah.
And same could go for a guy. And you know, it's not one way. Like I see couples, right? So I don't see, you know, I can't say there's an exact number of like it's always the guy or always the girl in my office, or you know, it's not. It's both sides of that. So if someone comes home, male or female comes home from work or from whatever they're doing and they're touched out or they're tapped out or they're exhausted, that doesn't mean they don't crave connection. It means I don't know how to give anymore. I feel like I'm empty, which is not fully true. And if I'm your partner, I'm going to go, well, I know that you really like this tea, or I know that you really like this song, or I know that you really like this food, or I know that you really like this touch or this smell or this something sensual. And I just like leave that out for you as a gesture of like kindness. My cup all of a sudden doesn't feel so empty. I feel gratitude. Gratitude's a really great energy. Yeah. Because gratitude is that I'm receiving, therefore I'm feeling. Mm-hmm. And I want you to then feel yours, because that's what we do in partnership for each other. Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't need to be so hard. It doesn't need to be so. I was the other day with my couple, again, long-term married couple with kids, overwhelmed. And she was kind of bored of the structure of their sex life. And so I basically just said, I kind of was reading her nonverbals, and I said, get off the couch for a second, stand up. And she was like, kind of like rolling her eyes. And I looked at him, and I was like, go take her. He was like, what? I was like, rock to her right now, just take her. Like, just take her like you haven't seen her in a long time. Like, just like take her. He kind of looked at me with his what? I was like, you have 5 seconds, go. He kind of, then he did. He walked up to her and like this fully embraced his masculine and grabbed her by the cheeks and just like made out with her, and she like melted into his arms. And I was like, well, that's all she wants. It could have backfired. But I said to her, and she was like, well, that was unexpected, and that was actually fantastic. And I was like, she doesn't want to be asked to have sex. She doesn't want to be asked. She doesn't want to run the bath with your face of like, okay. She wasn't looking for like the expectations. Mm-hmm. Like take her in your arms and make out with her. And she loved it. And she was like, if you just did that without asking me, I would rarely say no. Like, why would I want? This is great. Sure. So it's learning your partner. Again, that might not for every couple, but I'm watching in real time my partner's nonverbals, and I'm like, I think this is what they want. Yeah. And then I'm playing with that, and it can backfire. And I can hold the kid and be like, sorry, that's me. That didn't work very good. Let's try something else, right? But more often than not, we just got to try something different and pay attention to our partner. Like, what is it that they need right now? Mm-hmm. That overwhelmed mom maybe just needs a bath and someone to rub her feet, or someone to tell her that she's beautiful, or doesn't need her breast touched because she nursed a kid all day, but we love her back touched, or her fingertips, or her toes, or something else.
Without any expectations either.
No. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if you associate an expectation with following every back rub.
Yeah, no.
Now the back rubs become a thing.
No. Like, making intimacy the goal. Making connection the goal.
Yes.
Right? Not intercourse, not orgasm. If that's let that be a symptom. Let that be a result of. Mm-hmm. When it shows up as a result of this connection we have, great. But I want to connect. How do you want to connect tonight? Make that your question. Not, want to get it on later? Right? How about, hey, sweetie, how do you want to connect tonight? You're like, oh, I don't know, I'm so tired. Let's just cuddle. Yes. Or let's hold hands. Or let's do 5 minutes of eye contact. Let's do some deep breathing together. Mm-hmm. Let's stretch together. Let's work out together. I don't know, like there's 10,000 things.
What is one message that you want every couple, dating, engaged, or married, to take away from this up?
But I think, first of all, it's never too late. I know that I say that with like air quotes. But I do believe that. Like, I think it's I think there's something sweet in giving it your all. Yeah. There's something sweet in like there's ebbs and flows in all parts of a relationship, and there's something really sweet about, I didn't just give up, I gave it my all. I mean, people divorce, and probably for good reasons sometimes. 53%, I just read that this morning, that's the current stat, which has been about that for a long time. It's always about 50%, but 53 is what I heard today in North America. And even with that stat, they often get remarried, which is also a crazy stat. So if we're going to do this thing, because obviously we're going to do this thing called marriage, people are going to do it, or long-term committed relationship. Well, then let's do it well. Let's commit to, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Answering those questions based on what values, what principles, what do we stand for? And how can I support you in the best version of you? How can you support me in the best version of me? And how can we build this thing called relationship together long-term with really diligent, mindful agreements, rules, containers that are going to keep us committed and accountable to working on this thing. Yeah. I think that goes for premarital, early marriage, long-term marriage. And I mean, there are deal breakers, and there are times when it needs to be done. That's for sure. And actually, there are times when it can be done often in a very beautiful way. I have lots of couples that I know that have divorced beautifully, and we're like, I love you, and this ran its course, and that's okay too, for sure. And when that's true, that's true. But often, like I said, my people come to my office, I'm ready for a divorce. I'm like, really? Let's check out. Let's see if that's true. And often it's not. Often it's there's like so many slivers that they can't see beyond their pain, or their resentment, or their disdain for their partner. And we could pull some of those slivers out and start to see some compassion for self and others, for self and our partner. Things look a lot different. So I don't know if I have one thing, obviously, to say, a roundabout way of saying, yeah.
Repair.
Lean in. Yeah. To all the things that repair is one of the important things. Yeah, for sure. Lean into communication, lean into intimacy, lean into repair, lean into your partners, how they receive love, lean into, managing your boundaries around thirds, lean into how we could talk to each other, lean into all the things we're going to create agreements about. Lean in. Yeah. It feels counterintuitive sometimes, but lean in.
I love that.
Awesome.
Thanks, Alicia.
Yeah. Thanks for asking the questions.
Thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard today, make sure to share, subscribe, and like our channel. Or better yet, share our podcast with others. We'll see you next time.
This has been a Bread Dog Studios production.